Hey everyone. I Today in North Carolina, it's a really kind of a beautiful fall day. I mean it's you know most of you who are watching this might consider this to be a summer day, but anyway, I mean the high was like 60, the humidity was low, there was a cool breeze blowing, but it just feels like fall. And I was thinking about I think when I realized or when fall became my favorite season of the year. When I was in the 11th grade, I think, it may have been the 12th grade, but I think it was the 11th grade. We lived on the farm in Carlstead, Minnesota. And Carlstead is a little tiny town in a very unpopulated county. And we lived 10 miles out of that on a farm, and our closest neighbor was a mile and a half away. So anyway, one fall day, I believe it was probably early October, Pawpaw and I went to an auction sale way over in North Dakota. I mean, like, I don't know, let's say 125 miles away. So I guess it didn't seem that far to begin with, but you'll see why it seemed much further later on. So we get up early in the morning and we go and my parents had this Chevy Chevette, which is a little tiny car. I mean, it's about like the cars that all of us walkers seem to be driving now. And so we drive over to this farm sale, this auction sale in North Dakota, and we get there, and Pawpaw buys two things. He buys a farm truck, just a classic old round fendered, round hooded farm truck with a bed on the back, and he buys a cultivator. And a cultivator basically is just a thing that you pull behind the tractor, and it has these pointy things that break up the dirt and the clods of dirt and the grass and that sort of stuff like that. And it's a fairly big, heavy machine. And so he buys this truck, and he assumes that this truck that he buys has a hitch on it so that he can pull a cultivator back the 125 miles or so back to where we lived in Carlstead. Come to find out that the truck doesn't have a hitch on it, but the Chevette, which again is a small car like all the walkers seem to be driving right now, and the cultivator weighs more than the car, but the car will pull it. So he hooks up the cultivator to the Chevette, and we start down the road, and everything is great right up until it gets to the point that anytime he goes over 20 miles an hour, this cultivator on the hitch that he's pulling starts swinging back and forth. And because it weighs more than the car, the risk is that if the swinging gets to be too bad, that it'll just drag the car off into the ditch. So we have to make this 125 mile trip at 20 miles an hour. Now keep in mind, of course, I'm driving this farm truck that he's bought. And I'm just as a little aside here, I loved that truck. So this was in the late 1970s, and I think this truck was built in I want to say the late 50s, and it was an International Harvester. It was just had those big round fenders and the big round hood, big round headlights. The windshield was like flat. I don't know. It had just had this regular, grain bed on the back, but it had this old car smell, but not a bad old car smell, a nice old car smell. Anyway, so we're driving back on this 125 mile or so trip at 20 miles an hour, and it just goes on and on. But it was this beautiful October day. The sky was just dark blue. There were hardly any clouds. and the leaves had begun to turn. Just so you know, the person behind me is probably going to blow at me because I'm at this intersection where you never quite know if people are going to turn or not. But they don't have a stop. See, there you go. There's the horn blow. I knew it was going to come. But I will go when I'm ready, not when they're ready for me to go. Anyway, but I remember, the trees were changing color, the bright red and yellow leaves, and it was just, and the fields had either been harvested or they still had some grain in them, but the fields were all gold and brown colored. And they were just, I mean, it was just a beautiful day, just an absolute beautiful day. And because it was fairly warm, I had the window down on this old truck, and you could smell, you know, that leaf, that fall smell you get from the leaves and things decaying and that sort of thing. And then one other memory I have about this trip is that we had to go through Crookston, Minnesota, which is right on the border of North Dakota and Minnesota, and they had a Hardee's there. And so we stopped to get lunch or whatever, and I had a hot ham and cheese, and I swear to you, it was one of the best tasting things I've ever had in my life. And so we continued our trip, and like I said, it took 6 or 7 hours to go 120 miles or 125 miles. But anyway, it's I think at the time, oh, by the way, there was no radio. And of course, there were no podcasts or cell phones or anything. So basically, I just had to sit and look down the road and think and follow behind that Chevette with the with the cultivator on it. So anyway, all right, there's my story for today. Thanks for listening. Love you.